So, you know how Congress just spent $4 to $6 trillion to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic? Have any of you found yourselves wondering, where exactly did Congress find all that money? And now they want to spend even more? Do I have to pay for that? I thought the US was already trillions of dollars in debt. What about the burden on our grandchildren? Well, Stephanie Kelton, an economics professor, says, hang on a minute. Congress is where the money comes from. As the sole issuer of the US dollar, finding the money is actually the easy part.
This is the MMT podcast with Patricia Pino and Christian Riley. Hi everybody, Christian here. This is just a short announcement. You may remember we had an episode with Maren Poitras in April 2020 about her film, which is currently in production, called Finding the Money, which features Stephanie Kelton, Warren Mosler, Randall Wray, Fidel Kaboub, and many more MMT economists. And the good news is that the film was selected as one of 5 projects given the opportunity to pitch at the Doclands Film Festival this year, which means that it gets a development grant of $5,000, but here's where we can help. The film also has the chance to win an audience award of $30,000. Now, we don't have to raise that money, we just have to vote for the film. It takes less than a minute, just a few clicks, and it's a really easy way for all of us to help get this film made. I've posted the link to where you can vote for the film in the show notes, but I'll say it out loud. It's doclands.com/docpitch-finding-the-money. Those are dashes, not underscores. If you want to contribute directly to the film, all the info about that is at findingmoneyfilm.com. And I've also linked to our episode with Maren, the film's director, who you'll hear just totally gets the urgency of MMT, and that what drives most of us to spread the word about it is that we know that it's a crucial part of being able to fight our corner in a world with huge problems and politicians whose only answer to those problems seems to be, yes, we'd all like a pony and clean drinking water and a planet capable of sustaining human life and all that fun stuff, but where will you find the money? Now, you can see from the trailer, which I've linked to, that this film answers that question loud and clear, but it's going to take a bit of work to finish the project, and that requires funding. Winning this vote will help that immensely, so I really hope you can find a few seconds to click the link and vote for Finding the Money before the 10th of May. As a wise person once said, I need your boots, your motorcycle, and your votes. That was, of course, Steven Seagal in Under Siege 27, License to Siege, but I had been drinking when I watched it. Anyway, hope you can help. Here's Maren's pitch for the film, and you can see the video of it at the doclands.com link that I mentioned earlier. Doclands is spelt Doclands. Our next full-length episode will be out on Wednesday. Let's dive in.
So, you know how Congress just spent $4 to $6 trillion to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic? Have any of you found yourselves wondering, where exactly did Congress find all that money? And now they want to spend even more? Do I have to pay for that? I thought the US was already trillions of dollars in debt. What about the burden on our grandchildren? Well, Stephanie Kelton, an economics professor, says, hang on a minute. Congress is where the money comes from. As the sole issuer of the US dollar, finding the money is actually the easy part. Now, this might not sound familiar, but it's part of a controversial new economic theory that is quickly gaining traction on Wall Street and in Washington, called modern monetary theory, or MMT. My name is Maren Poitras, and my film Finding the Money traces the rise of modern monetary theory from the ridiculed fringes to the center of the political debate around what the US government can afford. If what they're saying is right, everything we thought we knew about money, debt, taxes, and politics will be flipped upside down.
I mean, I've been doing this now for a lot of years in front of mostly, I won't say hostile audiences, but in a sense, usually when I show up for an appearance, it's like walking into the lion's den.
Our next speaker is going to introduce this crazy radical idea that we maybe don't need to tax people in order to get their money to pay for things. Introducing this radical idea is Stephanie Kelton.
I come with an unconventional message. We think of spending and taxing as two sides of the same coin. If we want to fund a new program, the question is, how are you going to pay for it? Where will you get the money? You have to find the money. That's not how it works. Okay, the way that the conventional story goes, Uncle Sam needs money. If Uncle Sam wants to spend, Uncle Sam has to find some money. He can tax and he can borrow. Once it's collected the dollars, after that, it can spend. We flip that around completely.
An unconventional economic theory is gaining some traction, modern monetary theory, MMT.
And one of its leading proponents is Professor Stephanie Kelton. She has advised Bernie Sanders' campaign.
And she argues that almost everything we are told about the deficit is wrong.
We're $28 trillion in debt. There will be a day of reckoning.
If you're looking for more COVID bailout money, we don't have any.
How are we going to pay for it?
Congress has spent all the money.
You don't find the money.
It's not a matter of finding the money. They don't find the money, they create it. They create it through a keystroke.
Washington holds the power of the purse. They don't need to come to the rest of us to get dollars in order to be able to spend dollars. They're the source of the U.S. currency.
Governments have to spend first. How can you tax back dollars that no one has?
In a real sense, it is as simple as that.
But there's nothing more deceptive than an obvious fact.
This idea of so-called modern monetary theory that all government debts can be paid by printing money.
First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, and then you win. And for many years, we felt ignored.
You can't do what you're looking to do with $20 trillion in debt.
We want to lift this crushing burden of debt off of our children and grandchildren.
The government debt is not a burden on anyone.
It is exactly the opposite.
Zimbabwe printed more currency to pay its bills too.
That leads to inflation.
No. Inflation is the constraint. But at some point, they started laughing at us.
Modern monetary theory? I think of all the ideas I've ever heard in my lifetime, that's one of the stupidest.
We were always asking ourselves the question, do conventional economists understand what we're speaking of?
MMT is confused. The problem of deficits, of course, is that you have to pay back the money.
We do not have to repay the debt.
Or is it that they actually don't understand?
And then to the fight you stage. And so we're in the fight you stage.
Modern monetary theory tells us that the debt doesn't matter.
This theory is complete nonsense.
Bill Gates recently took exception with MMT, calling it crazy talk.
How are you going to pay for this?
America's broke.
Out of control debt. The debt
That we are going to have to pay back. We don't have any money.
The government doesn't need money. The government needs us to need money.
The difference is not a trivial one. It changes everything.
It changes our view of the nature of money.
The true story of money is not the story that I've been told.
I was told to worry that we're borrowing trillions from China, and just like the rest of us, profligate spending will lead to financial ruin. Trust me, I'm as frugal as they come. But Stephanie Kelton insists the same rules do not apply to a currency issuer. Now, just about every prominent economist from all sides of the political spectrum have come out to denounce modern monetary theory as voodoo economics, lunacy, or just plain wrong. And in fact, Kelton was not an easy convert herself. She first came across the ideas on a listserv in the 1990s. Warren Mosler, a Wall Street trader and fund manager currently living in the Virgin Islands, developed the first MMT insights. Stephanie saw what Warren was writing. Things like, when the government collects tax dollars, they simply delete the money. And the federal government is never actually borrowing dollars, so the national debt is not what we assume it to be. Stephanie's initial reaction was that Warren had it backwards, but she couldn't quite figure out why he was wrong, and she couldn't let go of it. As Warren Mosler puts it, once you see it, you can never unsee it. And he insists MMT is not too hard to understand. The government creates the money and can't run out of money. How complicated is that? Which leaves us asking, why don't we know this already? Why do our leaders say otherwise? In fact, the US House and Senate recently introduced resolutions to condemn MMT as a dangerous ideology. To find out, we speak with prominent economists, including chief advisors to former and current presidents. Is there a conspiracy afoot? Or does this conflict stem from a much older debate related to the story we tell about the nature and origin of money? Is it a real thing that we have to go out and find? Or has money always been virtual? The film follows two parallel story arcs, one in the present and one in the past. We take a 5,000-year journey to find the nature of money itself. Animated interludes weave back and forth through the film, revealing clues from clay tablets in ancient Mesopotamia to cowrie shells in West Africa, tally sticks in medieval England, paper in the US colonies, to virtual records on digital bank balance sheets today. Two conflicting origin stories compete. Did money evolve as an object out of barter, or has money always been a tool of political authorities? One key characteristic of the nature of money repeatedly appears. We begin to notice that money always has two sides. The film eventually builds to reveal what Stephanie Kelton explains the national debt actually represents. She shows we need to flip the national debt literally upside down in order to see the other side. We are half of the way through production on Finding the Money. We had a successful crowdfunding campaign for which I am forever grateful, and now we are raising funds to fill in the gaps to go into post-production, including graphics and animation. We have a talented illustrator who will bring to life the disparate times and places contained in the historical interludes, and help to visualize the aspects of money which are invisible to the naked eye. The virtual accounting of debts and credits, the churning of pluses and minuses. I come to this story personally from a place of trying to understand climate change and inequality. What are the root causes of these systemic problems, and what are the biggest obstacles to doing anything about them? Questions like, how are we going to pay for it? Or, we need economic growth to pay off the debt. Or, people desperately need jobs, so how can we sacrifice the economy for the environment? And as I kept digging deeper and deeper, it brought me all the way to the foundation of economics, and this story about an unorthodox group who are attempting to catalyze a Copernican revolution. I believe the story we tell about money matters, as the story we tell about the origin of money determines how we believe it should be managed today. Is money fundamentally a product of natural market forces or political forces? Does money have power over us, or do we have power over money? Ultimately, this is a story about a group of underdogs. And the question remains, if these unorthodox economists are right, will they prevail in time to change what we understand the federal government and society as a whole can afford in the face of unparalleled crises?
We have to change everything. The way we think about money, taxes, debt, deficits. It could be a long battle.
It's going to be a tremendous challenge.
So do I think we're going to win? I won't say no, but it's going to be a hell of a fight.
We are so grateful to be here at Doclands and can't wait to share more about this urgent and timely story. So please vote for Finding the Money. Thank you.